Hi Libra, welcome to your April 2020 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, wow, I was compiling this list and I was thinking, okay, seventh house. You ruled the seventh house, and in your particular chart, your opposite sign Aries is the seventh house. So, as the month begins, the sun is in that seventh house. And I think the sun harmonizes with the seventh house because, for instance, in the tarot, the sun card, one of the themes of the sun card is love. And the seventh house is about, the committed variety of love, committed partnership, other types of partnership too, but definitely love is in the mix there. And so you have the sun here. This is a very healing force in that seventh house. And on the third, Venus goes into Gemini. This is the ninth house. And this is a fellow air sign. So we're talking about a trine angle, which is very harmonious. And it's in an area that's very expansive. So an example would be if somebody is looking for love, they could find it with somebody who is from a foreign country, from some other culture. If you're traveling, this could be somebody that you meet on your travels. This is also because Venus can be about money. It could be money that's connected to higher education. So whether you're a professor, whether you're getting financial aid, the eighth house is shared resources or loans or something like that. So that could be student loans, but then actually receiving those funds so you can go to school, that could be possible. Or if you're working in an academic environment, or even publishing is the ninth house too. So interesting. On the 7th, there's a full moon in your sign. So this can be for Libra that you are, seeing something about yourself that you feel needs to change. Obviously, this is happening every year, not on the same date, but we have full moons in our signs, we have new moons in our signs, and it just depends on where you're at in life because the full moon is falling in the first house, although for some of you, technically, it'll actually be in your 12th house for about half of you. And this will be more of a letting go of a lot of self-defeating patterns or just simply seeing them, being made aware of them. But in in this particular case, in a strange sort of way, it doesn't really matter because you can come to the same revelations when the sun is in the first house because the first house is the house of the self. So you can still engage in those self-improvement behaviors by letting go of certain things. But when there's a full moon, the sun is opposing it at the same degree in the opposite house. So in this particular instance, we're talking about the sun being at 18 degrees of Aries, which is in your 7th house. So the full moon is in your house, in that house of the self. So what that says to me is that if this is an issue with relationships, you are honoring the self. You're taking into account what your needs are. Or it could be something the exact opposite, where you see, you know what? In order to make this relationship work, I'm going to have to stop doing this. And I wouldn't be surprised if for some of you, it's actually you doing something thinking that you're doing a good thing for the other person in the form of perhaps, always agreeing with the other person, not being authentic, and then the other person gets frustrated because they know that you didn't really want to do something. And this is I can't impress upon people enough, not just Libra, any sign, any human being, how important it is not to just give it, not just to agree to things that you really don't want to do. If you're not sure if you want to do them, you can always say, let me think about it, if you really are on the fence. But if you truly don't want to do something, don't say yes, because you will regret it. You will resent it. That was really what I was looking for, and the other person will know. It'll show up somehow, and so this may be something that you're kind of realizing about yourself that will improve your relationship. On the 11th, Mercury goes into Aries, so we have more activity in that 7th house, and this is obviously a diplomatic influence being governed by your sign, this house. But it's funny because we're talking about Aries here, because really when Mercury goes into Aries, it can create a lot of blunt speech that is not well thought out and that is deemed offensive by certain people who are receiving it. So, and I notice a lot these days people saying, well, it's only the truth, and using the truth as a weapon. This is a great combination because you've got the direct speech, which is important to communicate directly, but it's done so with diplomacy, with the Libra influence, and that's good. This can be some kind of negotiation that has some kind of contractual element to it too, legal matters. On the 19th, we have Mercury going into Taurus, and that's the 8th house, and that gets more intense, more deep, more private or secretive even. A lot different than the sun in the 7th house, that's for sure. The new moon is there a few days later. This gives opportunities in the area of metaphysics or the occult. Astrology, tarot can fit into this, as well as some kind of regeneration in your life, rebirth, true rebirth. 8th house is kind of transformation. On the 25th, Pluto goes retrograde in the 4th house of home and family. So this area, I was going to say, has taken quite a beating because, you do have Saturn here for the last few years, but Pluto's been here for even longer, like about 12 years, depending on your particular chart, obviously, but a long time probably for everybody. And most people. This may have taken its toll when it comes to relationships with your family of origin, especially your mother, because this is about probing your childhood. And you may have even gone into therapy in the last decade. I always joke that I think that air signs like Libra love therapy because they love to talk about their feelings, that analytical side of things. But this is tough because Pluto is, first of all, Pluto isn't taking any prisoners. It's very much about laying it all to bear. And this, it has like a very deep dive into the past. Now, with the Pluto retrograde, this is where you're going to have to work on the shadow self as it pertains to only you. In other words, sometimes when people have, let's say, the worst case scenario, come from an abusive childhood, the tendency is to identify as a victim, which makes sense because the person was a victim. But it's too easy just to go through life blaming. It's not going to change the past, and I think it doesn't show the full picture, which is about a person looking at the bigger picture. And you're going to be seeing the bigger picture come May, come June. That'll be more of a thing. I think it'll be a relief because you won't be so caught up in the past as you may be at this time, as you have this 8th house and 4th house activity. Because the 8th house is your psyche, and the 4th house can be your past, your roots. But Pluto retrograde is going to ask of you to look at how you play into these things. It's not blaming the victim, it's transcending the need for a victim, ultimately. Because in a lot of cases, the person who is the abuser was abused too. So it's a chicken and egg syndrome. Who gets to claim, who is completely blameless? Because I will say, though, that there are people who get abused in childhood who grow up and don't do that. Maybe, nobody's perfect where you are not always on your best behavior, but there are people who learn from the mistakes of others and don't repeat them. So it certainly is possible not to kind of continue the cycle. And maybe that's what this is about. If you have children of your own and looking as you as the mother or the nurturer of the child, how do you do that with your offspring, and how does it compare to what you had to deal with? So it's like inner work. On the 27th, we have Mercury in Taurus in that 8th house. So that, there you go. We got Pluto retrograde in the 4th, Mercury in the 8th. Oof. No, I'm just joking. It's not oof. It's actually very, it's really important in order to grow, in order to not be stuck if you feel stuck. I'm not saying that all Aries people feel stuck, but I'm sure that there are some of you who have really felt like you've gone through a lot in your personal life in the past decade or so, where, that does have that link to your childhood, and it has just completely affected every area of your life, from your career to your love life, to your family life. So in any case, this is about searching for these answers by looking within, and also by studying esoteric teachings that are not mainstream, that are very, a lot of the, if you look at the esoteric teachings, esoteric or occult meaning hidden, they involve, questioning they involve the consciousness. So it's about the way that we think, but it's the higher level of thinking, not the mundane, like, how do I, change my oil or something like that in my car, but something more about the meaning of life. The 8th house can be the secrets of the universe. This is a great transit of Mercury in the 8th, of being a citizen journalist or truther, kind of like ferreting out the truth behind the lies of what we are told in the mainstream media. It's the conspiracy theorist. I mean, I don't even like to use that term because it's usually used in a pejorative sort of way. But still, it's the best I can do with what I've got. So in any case, that's what I have for you, Libra. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.